It's Saturday, May 30th, 2026, and this is season 5, episode 18 of Two Guys on Politics, broadcast on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio, as well as on YouTube at twoguysonpolitics.com. You can easily subscribe to this podcast, and we hope you do. I'm Ray Hanania with my co-host, former Congressman Bill Lipinski. And today we are going to talk about a bunch of things. Federal court blocks the 1776 fund, $1.7 billion that Trump wanted to give to his insurrectionists. That was a alleged compromise from his lawsuit against the IRS for demanding his tax forms, I think, after he was president or when he was running for president. And there's been a series of problems for Trump. The court ordered Trump's name removed from the Kennedy Center. And we're going to talk about his ego, his narcissism, putting his face, his mugshot on the $250 bill that he wants to do. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk a little bit about the state of affairs with the Iran ceasefire. How is that going? What's happening with it. And then we'll shift a little bit and talk about crime in Chicagoland. Parents, should they be held responsible for their children? Or, as Mayor Brandon Johnson says, isn't it really the problem of the causes that are surrounding their life? Is that what the real problem is? Then we're going to shift and talk a little bit about a guy who wants to be congressman from the 4th Congressional District, Chris Getty. I'm inspired by this guy. I think I heard him give a speech. It was just amazing. And it reminded me of the past when I was younger. And we're going to end on a little reminiscence regarding the closing of the Ford City Mall. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be right back with all of these topics. Hang on, everybody. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the next voice you hear will be the man who wrote John Fitzgerald Kennedy's speeches, Ray Hanania.
And what was that song that it's a high hopes?
High hopes. He's got high hopes.
High hopes. He's got high hopes.
Yes.
Yeah, Jack. Vote for Jack.
A little bit of Camelot.
Yeah, it was a Frank Sinatra song. We're going to talk about. I'm going to push that a little bit when we talk about Chris Getty. But I have to tell you, I do have high hopes, Bill, because in the last week we have seen a reversal, a pushback on President Trump for the first time in a long time. The federal court blocked his so-called 1776 fund, $1.7 billion that he negotiated with his own government. He did this on his own to settle a lawsuit that he and his sons, $10 billion they filed against the IRS, claiming that they illegally released his IRS forms, income data and everything, and that caused them great reparable harm. And to eliminate that lawsuit, he said that they would allow the government to set up a $1.7 billion fund so he could disperse it to people who've been victimized by the Biden administration. It's just so sick, just the whole concept of how that even got that far, Bill. I mean, you ever hear of anything like that before?
No, I've never heard of anything like that whatsoever. And I don't, that is... I keep saying that I cannot believe what Trump did when he does something. But then 2 days later, he does something which is even worse than what he had done 2 days before. It's absolutely incredible. No, I mean, of course, I'm sure he's a very honest, fair man. So when he made that deal, with the Justice Department, I'm sure he represented himself and his family, plus the United States of America. And somehow he came out with this compromise to create this fund to pay those insurrectionists who supported every move of his uh, when he tried to block the election of Joe Biden.
Yeah, it would. I was listening to a former federal judge talk about how, that you can't go to court yourself. You're basically suing yourself because you're the government, and then you step in and resolve it yourself to your own benefit. There's something wrong with that system. I don't even know how he even got as far as he got. Where are the members of Congress? I mean, what are they doing? They're like lemmings, especially on the Republican side. He does whatever he wants, and they just sit there quiet, like meek and afraid. It's embarrassing. The Republican Party, I'll tell you, it is nothing like what it was when Reagan was the president, or even Eisenhower, or any of the past presidents. The Republican Party used to be very powerful, used to represent a lot of people. We've seen the political shift, from these big urban areas become more Democratic, and the suburban areas becoming more Republican. I just can't understand how a guy like this managed to wiggle his way in to take control, not just of the Republican Party, but the country. And then instead of being humble to say, hey, I'm lucky, why don't I do some good things? He just starts doing whatever he wants to promote himself. The typical narcissist, right? Puts his name
Oh,
and face on everything.
I'm sure everything he does is for the good of the country.
What happened to the $10 billion fund that he set up for Gaza, the Gaza war plan or whatever it was? People have forgotten about that, but I bet that $10 billion check got cashed. Somebody's spending it.
Well, I
People are
think that,
making money. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, getting a salary from it. Doing what?
did you see the interview done by his daughter-in-law that was on Fox? I think it was last Friday or Saturday.
No, I did not.
It was really a hard-hitting interview. Here's his daughter-in-law, who apparently is a some kind of reporter for Fox. She had this exclusive interview with him. I'd never seen so many softballs in
This
my life as I saw in that interview.
isn't
I mean, it was a
Fox
total waste
embarrassing?
of time.
Isn't I can't even watch Fox News anymore. They've totally succumbed to this guy, and I think it's Murdoch is so old he can't control Fox anymore. It's just spinning out of control.
I
And
never
this is
watched Fox, but this was on a different channel showing the hard-hitting interview, tongue in cheek, that his
hard hitting.
daughter-in-law did on him.
Yeah, that's just it's embarrassing, isn't it? It's like
It, it
they
is
think
very
people are.
embarrassing.
Do they think people are stupid? Does Trump think that the American people are so stupid he can just say and do whatever he wants? That's what he thinks, right? He's smarter than us. He's smarter than them. He just says what he wants. We're too stupid to challenge him. We should just go along. All his sycophants, even I know we don't need to get into this, but there are people around him in his cabinet who hated him, who attacked him, and you give them a job and some money and they flip and completely reverse themselves, and now they sit there. I would be embarrassed if I were a member of his cabinet, and I wonder what's going to happen to those people when Trump is gone. I'm wondering what is going to happen to him, to
Well,
those people.
I'm hoping that one of them will be the next president of the United States, but we'll go into that at another time.
I listen, I hope nobody survives in politics that is associated with his administration. This is probably the worst administration we've ever had. I don't know. Am I being too um, unfair, do you think, in saying
No,
that?
I know quite a bit of American history, and I cannot think of anyone who comes close uh, to this Trump administration, truthfully. Very, very disappointing. I didn't think I'd ever live to see the day that an individual of this ilk would be president of the United States.
And
And
and it's
let me ask you at this time,
sure.
we have this ceasefire, with the Iranians, and we're almost got a deal set up. What do you think of that deal?
I don't think the deal exists. I think he's just playing propaganda. I think that's Trump's thing, propaganda. And he says whatever he wants. He says it's reality. He goes on Twitter like a drunken sailor or his own social media, Truth Social, like a drunken sailor. And he makes all these pronouncements in the middle of the night. He does this all night. He's sitting up. He's saying, this is what we're doing. And then you look at the Iranians, and how is it that he has made the Iranians look like they're the sensible, stable ones, and he's the erratic one? Only Trump could do that. They're sitting there saying, we don't know what he's talking about.
Well, if this deal uh, is signed by Trump and agreed upon by the Iranians, we open up the straits, we pull away our blockade. Uh, the regime is still in place. They still have not renounced wanting to have nuclear weapons. The enriched uranium is still in Iran. What have we gained?
Nothing. In
What,
fact, it's a step backwards.
it is a step backwards because they never had the idea of controlling the straits before. But
Right.
now they have seen how effective they can be in doing it. So they
Yep.
can use that anytime in the future to hold over the world's uh, nations if they get upset with somebody. And
I know that.
we allowed that to happen. To me, there is only one thing left to do. We have to revert to the military and we have to destroy this country as much as possible. And we have to get rid of that leadership. Otherwise, it's been a total and complete waste.
Good luck, Bill, with that. Good luck with that. You know what? I'm going to say that
Are
today,
you saying that
Iran,
we are you
no,
saying that
we
we
can't.
couldn't do that?
No, we can't.
Oh, come
We
on.
couldn't do it to Afghanistan.
Well,
What did we,
Afghanistan was nowhere
was
near the
even
built up country that Iran is. If we start
exactly.
their power plants, the electric plants, their waterworks,
You
I
think
think they
that that's
could
going to bother
capitulate.
them? They're just going to be tougher. Iran is probably the toughest, singularly self dependent country in this world, I think. They're the least dependent on anything. And that's our big mistake. We just assume that because they're from or the Asia or whatever the East, the further east of the Middle East, that they're going to be easy to defeat. And I think it's the dumbest thing we've ever done. I think that the only way we're going to defeat Iran is if we put 500,000 American soldiers in Iran, and it'll be worse than Vietnam, worse than we've ever seen. And you want to know something? We won't get there because I think that people know that it's going to be so terrible. We're never going to do that because if it were so easy, we would just send the troops in there and take over the country. But we haven't done that. Bombing them the way we bombed them with all our missiles and everything has done nothing. Nothing has
You mean it
changed.
destroyed their army, their navy, and their air force?
Oh, really? Then why don't we just walk in? What are we afraid of? Are we cowards?
Well, we don't want
We
to put
destroyed
boots
their
on the
air force.
ground. Politically, it will not be
Why?
accepted in this country.
Why
It's
wouldn't we put boots
politics.
on the ground if we got on the ground if we got rid of their army and their air force? That's the point that I'm making. We are lying to ourselves. And that's propaganda from Trump. This is a guy who exaggerates everything to make himself look good, bad policies. He spins to look good. I think Iran is the toughest country in the world. I think it'd be the worst mistake we ever made. And I think, honestly, when I look back at it, I give President Barack Obama credit. He cut a deal with the Iranians, and I don't believe they were pushing for nuclear weapons. I believe that's all Israeli propaganda, and the government are the biggest liars in this world today,
I'm
and
beginning to have
and
a
more
hard time
people are
hearing you,
seeing it.
Ray. Is something happening to the volume? Well, I disagree with you.
I know you do, but that's
All
okay.
we have to do really is keep our blockade in place, and we will eventually get them to submit to our will. They're
You're
dying that country now because of our blockade. And we're
you're
going
living
to,
in the past, Bill. If this were the 1960s or 70s, I'd say you're absolutely right. But today it's a different world.
we
They
have the
the
greatest military in the world,
Oh,
Ray.
yeah, really. What happened to Russia and Ukraine? Sounds like Russia has a better military than we do because they're able to fight a war for four
Oh, no.
years
The
while we're
Ukrainians are
afraid.
defeating them
Well, I hope they are. I really
thanks
do
to our
hope they
help.
are, but no
The
thanks to the
Ukrainians are
US.
beating the Russians.
No thanks to the
Now,
United
let's see, you're on
States.
the side of the Iranians, the Russians. How about the
And the
Chinese? Are
Chinese,
they
add
with
the
you
Chinese
also?
to it. Our
That's
enemies are doing better today because of Donald Trump. And all you got to do is throw $1 on the floor and Trump falls on the ground for that dollar. He'll do anything for that dollar. And that's
Ray
the problem with our
Hanania,
country today.
Trika, China, Iran. Oh, you got four. I'm sorry. What about that great Democratic
Oh,
Republic of North Korea?
oh, you mean Trump's buddy? That was Trump's friend. Trump was the one who went to North Korea, crossed the line like some goofball, wanting to say hello. What came out of that? Nothing. The whole point is Trump is doing things that, in principle, may sound like, oh, yeah, those are good ideas, but they're not reasonable. You can't reason with the communists. You can't reason with North Korea. You can't reason with Iran. What you can do is you could embargo them, you could surround them, you could restrict their access and punish them when they do things that are wrong. But to believe that we can go in and take over the country is foolishness, and it's just going to drag our country down.
Yeah, well, it worked in Venezuela.
Venezuela. Oh, yeah, he was a tough guy. He had one of the, what, his army probably ranked 190 out of 192. That
But
was not,
he had all those Cubans guarding him, those
it,
tough
there's
Cubans.
And that's another one. We're going to go to war soon with Cuba because Marco Rubio, he's Cuban. He has this whole purpose. I think the whole reason he compromised his principles to work with Trump was to get at Cuba. That's what I believe is driving Marco Rubio. We're going to talk about him in a future episode, but there is talk that we're going to go to war with Cuba. Are you worried? Do you think that that's possible?
Yes, I do.
Oh my God.
I
What
think we need to free the Cuban people
from what?
our, from the oppression of that communist government that they live under.
The oppression of our embargo that's preventing them from getting heat, oil, electricity, internet, and food. We're the ones stopping it.
We
Why
we
don't
we sent them food, and they refused to accept it.
okay, I probably they didn't trust it. They probably thought that Trump was poisoning the food. This is a mess, Bill. You got to admit, this is a mess. We have
There's
Iran, we have
there is
Cuba,
no question. I admit it is a mess. Yes.
and there's no positive side to any of this. I don't see any positive to any of the stuff that we're doing. And on top of it, the presidency is a clown show. It's a joke. He wants to put his face on the $250 bill. I mean, listen, there are people out there that in today's economy, I spend $250 just to get cereal and milk and eggs at the grocery store, and I'm looking at $5 and $10 bills. How many times do you think you and I would go to a store and pull out several $250 bills to buy, groceries? Is that what he's saying to us, that that's where we're
Well,
headed?
he can't do that unless the Congress agrees to it, because it's against the law to put a living person's image on U.S. currency.
And of course, that's the quandary here. I mean, I would love to see Trump
Well, I don't.
formally and properly put on the $250 bill, but only under the right circumstances. No living president should have their picture on any
Is there
American bill.
is there something you're trying to infer there?
Yeah, I am. 8647. Throw him out. He's a terrible guy.
Well, are
But
you finished? so I can get a word in edgewise over here.
You're getting your word in edgewise. Go ahead, Bill. You
Now,
always do.
I
Go
agree
ahead.
with you that this is really a mess. Where I disagree with you is that I believe that if we had some smart people in charge, number one, we would keep our blockade in place. Okay. Number two, I believe we should resume the war by going after their infrastructure. Now, we'll be criticized because people will say it's not humanitarian, but we are in a mess. We cannot afford to walk away from this without accomplishing anything. And as far as I am concerned, other than destroying their army, their navy, their Marines, their Air Force, which were not their main line of defense or offense, it's the Revolutionary Guard. Have we done anything with the Revolutionary Guard? I don't think so.
Well,
So I think that we got ourselves into this mess. We can walk away and be humiliated, or we can finish the job. I say finish the job.
and we could walk away the way we were humiliated in Vietnam. We lost 66,000 Americans, 65,000 Americans in a war that was totally mismanaged and misrun. Are we going to walk? The Korean War? I mean, when you really look at it, what did we really accomplish with the Korean War? North Korea is still a terrorist threat in this world. We say so much, but we don't follow through.
Well, the
And Trump
Korean
is
War,
even worse.
if MacArthur was allowed to bomb the bridges over the Yalu River, the Chinese would have never been able to come into that war. And we would have won that war, and all of Korea today would be a democratic republic, just as South Korea was. So once again, it was politics. That is the problem. You
Yeah.
cannot allow politics to influence you when you get involved in a war. I'm sorry to say, but that happens to be the truth. And that's why we're in the predicament today that we're in, besides having an egomaniac as our president.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think though you're a little too optimistic on what the results would have been. It's easy to say that we would have turned North Korea into democracy. I don't believe that. Those people are so brainwashed and have been brainwashed for a long time. That ideology is not something you could just change in one generation. It takes many generations.
Yeah, but Ray,
Just like
in 1954, they had not been communists that long. They hadn't been communists for more than 4 or 5 years at the most at that particular time. But that was a long time ago.
yeah,
Let's not go down that
that's
road.
true. That's true. But listen, I don't disagree with the need to change Iran. I totally agree with that. The Iranian government is not a good government, has never been a good government, and they're very oppressive. I just think that when you take the wrong tactic, you actually empower them. You make them stronger because I think the people in Iran are rallying around their government, which is ironic considering that the government was oppressing the people of Iran. We've managed, Trump's only achievement apparently is to get the Iranian people to stand with their government, to say that there's somebody worse than their government that they have to fear. That's not the way to do it. I think that Trump did all this because he hates Obama and he wanted to tear down these people. He is that petty. It's all about this pettiness that he has, where he even took the picture of Biden and put it on this wall of presidents and disparaged the former President Biden in such a disgusting way. Honestly, I'm surprised and I blame the Democratic leadership. They're weak, they're misled. They should have sued Trump as soon as he disparaged Biden in that photo that he put up on the wall. They should have stood up, but they can't stand up. We have the worst leadership, not just in the Republican Party, but in the Democratic Party. That's the thing that's very depressing, Bill. It's hard to, we can say we want what it is we want, but I don't believe we're close to what we need.
Oh, I don't believe that we want that. But there's another thing that this war has accomplished. As I mentioned earlier, but I want to reiterate it. Now the Iranians know how they can shut down that strait anytime they want to and
Yep.
hold the world hostage. Okay. Uh, they've never done that before, but now they realize that they can do it. And they'll do it, you know,
Well,
if the
if
world starts giving them problems in any other direction.
yeah, and I believe that instead of reinforcing a relationship with NATO against Russia in support of Ukraine, Trump bullied the NATO members, disparaged the NATO members, talked about how worthless NATO was, took away American funding for NATO. We've reduced it significantly. And then he wonders why isn't NATO stepping in to help with the Straits of Hormuz? Because most of the oil that goes through there impacts Europe, and they don't want to be associated with us. I don't think they want to stand with us. And I think if I'm an Iranian leader, I'm looking and I'm going, you know what? This guy, Trump, is doing more to help us than anything that we could ever do. And I really think that Iran is a much stronger country today in the Middle East, among third world nations. I think that we are actually empowering them in a way that we haven't even seen yet. And that's what worries me a lot.
Well, that's why we have to take them out, right? Once and
Which
for
one?
all.
We take out who? The
The
president or the
Iranians.
Iranians? Oh, okay. I think the problem is our president needs to be removed from office. And we're never going to take out the Iranians until we have a real leader in the White House. Right now, it's a clown show and a narcissistic clown show, and we can't do anything. We're just going to cause one problem after another. No ending. There's no ending to any of this. Nothing. There's no ending to the Ukraine. There's no ending even in Cuba, in Venezuela, in Iran, in the Middle East, in Gaza. But we are spending billions that the Trump organization is getting indirectly. They're profiting from this. And I think that's all he cares about.
Well, I'm
And,
going to
and
send this a copy of this program to the Democratic National Headquarters because I think you should be their chief propagandist from now until they rescue this country from the
listen,
Republican Party.
listen, I think the Democrats are a total disaster. I think we're where we're at because of poor leadership on their part. We need new leaders. There are some good people. We talk about this every week. Who's going to stand up and lead us? Where's JFK? Where's Ronald Reagan? Where's Dwight Eisenhower? Where are these great leaders that they made the tough choices? They did things that needed to be done the right way with principle and fairness and achieved many things. Today, it's like ego. This is Trump politics. And I think one day they're going to teach a class in universities about the destruction caused by Trump politics. It'll be a separate class that people will look at what he did and be in shock that the American people allowed this to happen, that the most ignorant level of people in our country empowered this guy because of I don't even know what the reason is, how they have such a lack of respect,
Well, all
for
I
the
know is that I never voted for this guy, not the first time, the second time, or the third time that he ran. So my hands are clean.
well, listen, I blame the Clintons for corrupting the presidency. And I think that set the stage for this transition that happened. And Obama, being African American, divided this country because of race. I thought he was a great president. And I didn't agree with everything he did, but there were a lot of things he did do, and he had that way of talking that made so much sense. If Obama had been white, this guy would have been the next JFK. They would have put him on a pedestal and said, "Wow, his rhetoric was so inspiring; it moved people." But because he was African American, and this country still is driven by racial tension and divisions and problems, we pretend they don't exist, but they do, Bill. There's racism out there no matter what. And it comes out that we can't even avoid it. Everyday Americans can't even avoid it. It's just
Is
in our
America the
face.
only country that, has some racism?
No, I think a lot of them do. But
Okay.
we are the only country that stands up and says we're not going to tolerate racism.
Right. Absolutely.
We're the only one who says it, and yet we can't even overcome it. These other countries with racism, they don't get up there and say, well, we're going to solve things. We're the ones that say we're better. We're the ones that say we're a democracy.
Well, we
We're
are.
the ones. Well, we are, but when we say it, we have to mean it and we have to do it. It can't be just words. And right now, that's all just words, in my opinion. All right, Bill, do you think this will be evidence for the Justice Department?
They're not going to need evidence, Ray.
I think the Justice Department is going to have their hands full over the next 6 months as we go into this election. It's going to be a disaster for Trump. And that's only if I can afford to feed myself and my family over the next 6 months. That's what I'm really worried about. Why don't we take a break, Bill, unless there's something more we want to add? Okay, let's take a quick break from this very kind and generous conversation we've had.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back right after these messages. Hang on, everybody. And welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys on Politics. Chris Getty, Bill, when you hear the name Chris Getty, what do you think of?
I think of a young, charismatic, honest, hardworking individual who wants to represent the people that he is serving at the present time. And he wants to represent a larger constituency of people in the congressional district where he is running. I believe that he was the youngest individual elected as chief executive of a not a metropolitan area, but a mayoral area in the state of Illinois. Is that correct? Do you know
Yes,
that?
in 2009.
Okay.
Yes, he was the youngest. I think he was 26 at the time. I'd have to look, but you're absolutely right. Now, I've done media work for Getty, and I got to tell you that I love the guy. I think he's honest, and people say, "Oh, well, you're working for him." I only work for people that I admire. There are a lot of people that have offered me jobs, and I won't take those jobs. But when I can work with somebody that I really admire, I definitely am proud to do that. I really like Getty. I see in Getty a future for politics that's a complete contrast to what we have today, in the United States. We're in an environment that Trump has dragged down our political environment so low, below the gutter, that anybody almost standing up with some principle is going to look good. Getty, I think, is even way above that. And
Well, the important question, though, Ray, can he get elected?
well, I mean, that's an interesting thing. I think that Chuy Garcia, who I, I'm divided about Chuy. I always liked Chuy Garcia. He was a good person. I don't have any animosity towards him, but I can see how you get jaded after 20 years in politics. What did you accomplish? Your biggest thing, like even with Luis Gutierrez, his predecessor, they wanted to solve the immigration problem. Gutierrez fought for reforming immigration for 20 years. Nothing happened. Chuy Garcia fought to reform immigration for 20 years. Nothing happened. They were unable to do anything. You leave office with this big black hole of failure on one of the most important issues that got you into office. And I think it makes you do stupid things. And I think his decision to manipulate this office by putting it as chief of staff, to kind of control it rather than taking away the vote of the people, to pick their own successor. He manipulated this whole thing. And it's such a contrast to what I believe Chuy Garcia was. It's such a disappointment. So it gave Getty an opportunity to step in because nobody is happy with what Chuy Garcia did to set his chief of staff up to orchestrate this so she could be the only candidate running as a Democrat in the congressional race in the 4th district.
My
And I
question
think,
to you, Ray, was can he win? And so far, you've
yes.
not gone near answering that question.
Well, I'm setting up the groundwork.
Oh, okay.
There's an anger out there that says we need somebody better. And right now, you have his chief of staff and maybe three other Hispanics, and you have Chris Getty, the only white candidate in the race so far. And what's interesting about this is Getty's organization, he managed to get 20,000 signatures in such a short period of time.
Very
It,
impressive.
yeah, it showed that people want something different. They didn't have to fight to they needed only 11,000, I think, or 10,500, something like that. They got 20,000, double. So it shows you that there's an enthusiasm out there for him. And I went to his fundraiser last week where he spoke. I posted the video on my website at hanania.com if someone wants to watch it. He got up there and gave a speech. He didn't read it. There was no, cue
Teleprompter.
cards. There was no teleprompter. It came out of his heart. And, maybe he was a little, not shaky, but, not 100% perfect in delivery, but it was so inspiring to hear these words come in a meaningful way. It wasn't like he was just reading something. It really came out of his heart, I thought. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, and maybe it's because of this environment with Trump destroying our politics and morality. I'm thinking this guy makes me feel like I felt in the 1960s when I listened to JFK or Charles Percy. Chuck Percy, you remember Percy, right?
I
He
remember I served in Congress with Chuck Percy. I know
Percy
Chuck
was a
Percy quite well.
he was a great guy, wasn't he?
He did a good job running Motorola.
I thought he was a great speaker. Percy was loved. He was beloved he was very popular
He did
for a
lose,
long
didn't he?
time. He did lose. It
Yeah,
happens. So did a lot of people. A lot of
he
people
was
lose.
so loved that he lost the Senate seat that he held for how many years, Ray?
It was a while, a
It was
couple
a long
terms.
time, yeah.
Yes, it was. It was a couple
I guess he
terms.
wore out his welcome.
Well, but what I'm saying is that that's at a time, and those were, when I was younger, Percy was the guy. I remember the Percy election. We talked about it in school. I remember the JFK election. But then we saw Ronald Reagan, and then we heard Barack Obama. It just was nice to hear Chris Getty talk in the same level of dialogue, not rhetoric, not political rhetoric, but real meaningful things about how we need to make this a better place for every family, how we got to put the priority back on the family, on people, how we have to
Ray,
do
when
what
is the
they
last
need.
time when is the last time an independent won a race for Congress?
I don't know. It's not easy. It absolutely is not easy. And I would say normally this would not be
It
easy,
has
but
never happened. It
well,
has never happened in the state of Illinois.
and that has a lot to do with when people go to vote in November, Democrats tend to vote for Democrats rather than the candidate. But
Correct.
I think that a lot of
And
Democrats in
Republicans
this,
vote for Republicans. Is there a Republican candidate running
yes,
in
there is.
Congress?
I saw a Republican candidate that is in the race, but this district, the way you look at the numbers, there's a shot. There's no guarantee. But when you have three Hispanic candidates, and Byron Sigcho-Lopez is a great guy too, in my opinion. He's the alderman from Chicago. He is a smart guy. I don't think he's perfectly organized politically, He doesn't have like a real strong political organization behind him, but he's a very principled person. When he says something, he means it. I trust him. I may not agree with everything that he says, but there are a lot of things that I do agree with. But I think you're going to have three Hispanics running in this race.
You think you'll have three Hispanics when it comes
Yes,
down to election
in
day?
November. Oh, yeah.
You don't think any one of those Hispanics will get out of the race? You don't think that Chuy
No,
Garcia still has enough influence in the Mexican
no,
community to
no.
force any of those candidates out of the race?
He's not Luis Gutierrez. If this were Luis Gutierrez, Gutierrez is a smart guy. I knew Gutierrez from when he was a cab driver to an alderman to a congressman. That guy was brilliant, smart. He knew how to talk. Chuy Garcia is kind of like an afterthought to Gutierrez. A good guy, a nice guy. He did some good things. He said he stood for the right principles and things, but he never really was a very strong leader.
I think
You
he's
know,
a much better politician than Louis Gutierrez. And
well, because you didn't
I
like his
liked Louis. I got
politics.
along with Louis. I never served with what's his name, Garcia, but I have observed him probably for close to 40 years now. He's a smart, shrewd politician. Believe me.
I thought he was a great alderman. Well, I should say he was a very good alderman with Harold Washington. But as far as being a congressman, you still have to look at what did you achieve. Now, we last podcast we talked about what you achieved. You were in Congress 22 years. You achieved things, and this isn't just to pat
Yeah,
you on the back, Bill.
we heard
No,
all
but I'm
about
saying
William
I under,
Lipinski in the last
I
episode. We
understand,
don't have to
but
go
the
over him once again. He is
no,
probably the greatest congressman in the history of the republic. I
the
want to get back to this race. Let me say this about Chris Getty. I like Chris Getty. I think he is a very good candidate. Uh, but I think it's going to be extremely difficult for him to win this race, even though he got so many signatures, even though he has so many people working in his behalf, because it's tough to get people not to vote for a Democrat or a Republican. Okay.
right,
And as
right,
long as there's a Republican in the race, that is going to hurt him because some people who would normally vote Republican, if they don't have a Republican candidate, they would vote for Chris Getty. Uh, I would like to see him win. I hope that he will win. I think what he should do is focus on today, people don't like the Democrats, they don't like the Republicans. He
right,
should campaign on the theme that he's an independent. He will work with the Democrats, he will work with the Republicans. Whoever was going to help him, help the people of his congressional district, that's where he's going to stand. I think that's his best shot of winning this race. His greatest handicap, Ray, is going to be money. It's very difficult to raise money as an independent candidate. And he's never had any experience having to raise congressional money. I hope he hires some people who are really familiar with how to raise congressional money because he's going to need it in this race. Do you know what the breakdown of the district is between Hispanic voters and Caucasian voters?
no, but I can look it up real quick. Um,
No
so
question.
even if they were like 66% Hispanic, it's like only having 20% of the vote in the district because white voters vote 90% of the time. Black voters vote 90% of the time. Hispanics are the lowest turnout voter group in this country. And for, a reason that has to do with fear of immigration and all that other stuff. I get it. But that is the detriment, I think, to Patty Garcia, who is the
But
person that Chewy anointed.
if the Hispanic turnout is that low in that district, then I think that Chris does have a shot at winning it. I hope he does. I think he would do a very good job representing the people there, but I still maintain it's going to be a tough road, a hole for him to accomplish this. But I certainly am willing to help him and support him in any way that I can. So anytime I can help you in your work for him, please feel free to call upon me.
Yeah, and listen, like I said, I do support him. I like the guy. If I didn't like him, I wouldn't work for the guy. But I really think that it's more than just a good person. I think that with the turnout as low as it is in the Hispanic community, with the turnout in the district, I mean, when you look at the voter turnout, it's low. So it doesn't take much to win a race. This could be the one opportunity. I really believe this is a great opportunity for Chris to move into another, to advance his political career. I don't think there'd be a better shot any other time. This is the one he has. And I think he has a good shot at it. So, I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens. But I think he has a good shot at it. Even with the white voter population being low, they still turn out higher compared to the large Hispanic community that turns out very, very low. So
Well,
it will be interesting.
I would advise him to concentrate on the Caucasian voters in the district, try to get the maximum turnout from them.
Well, he does have a lot of support in the Hispanic community. Lyons has a big Hispanic population at Lyons Township. He's a supervisor of Lyons Township, the mayor of Lyons, the village president. He's well known in that area, in that region. And when you look at him, he has that image. I mean, image has a lot to do with it. He's a guy that you look at and you think, okay, I might be able to trust this guy because that's part of what is hurting politics today. I think Trump actually makes him look 10 times better too. The environment that Trump has dragged our politics down to makes anybody look better, especially somebody who's good. You're going to look 10 times better. So it'll be interesting.
Yes,
You and I will follow that in the next
no question
few
about it.
months, see how that goes. All right, listen, just real quick, why don't we talk about Ford City Mall? We only have like about maybe 5 or 6 minutes. We were going to talk about crime in Chicagoland. We could talk about that too if you want. What do you think?
Well, let's talk about Ford City
Yes.
Shopping Center. The building that Ford City uh, Shopping Center is housed in was built in 1942. It was built to construct B-29 bombers
Right.
by the Dodge Motor Car Company, which was owned by Chrysler. Uh, it never did build the B-29 bombers completely, but what it did do was build the engines for the B-29s. It was very successful. It produced more B-29 engines than any other plant in the United States. It was also, at the time, the largest enclosed structure in the world. That's how big that was. In 1946, the war was over. It shut down. It went dormant. You know what happened in 1948?
No.
Have you ever heard of Tucker?
No.
Never heard of Tucker. Okay.
No.
There was a guy by the name of Tucker who started a car company in 1948. It was called the Tucker Torpedo, although he didn't like
right.
that name for it. He wanted to call it the Tucker 48. It lasted only about 6 or 7 months, but it produced 59 cars. 53 of those cars are still running today. If you would want to buy one of those, it would cost you $1 million to buy one.
Wow.
It was so advanced. He was put out of business by Chrysler, by Ford, and by GM because they didn't like the competition because his car was so advanced. Once again, in 1951, the Korean War was on. That Ford City building came back to life, producing aircraft engines once again for the Korean War, and it was the Ford Motor Company that was running it at that particular time. After the Korean War was over, the building shut down again. And then in 1965, a fellow by the name of Harry Chaddick put together a bunch of individuals who bought the property, converted it to the Ford City Shopping Center. And you
Now,
knew Chaddick, I believe.
yeah, I did. I knew Harry Chaddick. He died in, I think, 1994. And I think that's part of the thing. Chaddick had a vision for Ford City.
Yes, he
And
did.
he really built up Ford City. Ford City, I grew up in Ford City as a teenager. I worked there. was my second job. My first job at 14, I worked at a Burger King near my home at 87th and Luella, across from CVS High School. I went to Bowen High School. And then later on, when we moved out west to Burbank, I ended up getting a job at Ford City. I worked in uh, Berlin's shoe store. It was a woman's shoe store. The owner of Berlin's was such a great guy. I know his son. I talked to him. I think his father is still alive. He's obviously getting very old, but I worked there. It was a safe, great place to work, Bill. You would go to Ford City. There was no fighting. There was no attacks. It wasn't, you could go there, you could hang out as young people. We would go to the movies over there. We would go to restaurants over there. I would work there. You could leave at night. Nobody ever broke into my car. I think the change in the environment around Ford City is what killed Ford City. That it just wasn't the same safe place that it was. They tried to change it by building that underground Peacock Alley, and they
Well,
tried to
Peacock Alley that underground was always there. That's where they moved a lot of the parts to build the aircraft
right.
engines. But let me
Right,
say,
but
I
I
must
when
have
I was
shot
there,
there.
I never went to Peacock Alley. I didn't even know it existed until later when they started promoting it. But I don't recall any stores ever being in Peacock Alley when I was there
Yeah,
in
well,
the
there were
60s
some.
and 70s.
I must have shot there at least 100 times. Uh,
Maybe in the 80s and 90s, right? In the
well,
80s.
no, this was primarily in the late 60s and the 70s is when I shot there more than anything else. And I always liked it. I thought they had a lot of very good stores. They had J.C. Penney's. They had Carson Perry Scott and Company. They had a lot of nice economical restaurants. And probably the best thing that they had was a place where my mother worked, Fannie Mae Candy.
Yeah, Fannie Mae Candy. They had great stores there too. They were good stores. Now you go to some of these malls and it's garbage. They sell gang hats and gang shirts. The clientele has changed. They're not pandering to the people with money, the middle class. That were the people that went to the mall. It isn't the rich and the wealthy. It was the
No.
middle class. They abandoned the middle class and they started pandering to very specific groups. And I think that's what destroyed it. I have not been to Ford City in over a decade. It's been 10 years. I have not been there. I would not go there. I would not go to a movie. And I'll be honest, out of fear, I would not trust the environment where I would be. So I just would never go there. And it was over for me with
Well, my
them.
point, though, in going from when it was the Chrysler Corporation running the place with Dodge Motors up through Ford City has been reborn on numerous occasions. And I
Yeah.
would be surprised if it comes back once again as some successful entity. What it will be, I don't know. But I think it has an excellent location. I think the building is still a sound building, even though most of it was built in 1942, 1943. But I think it can come back again, maybe not as a shopping center, but as something that will be valuable for the community.
Yeah. I think the key to success is not the stores, but the people who go there. And if you have good people, regardless of race, black, white, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, whatever, um, you have good people that go to a shopping mall, you have a successful shopping mall. I think that's the problem. We started losing that quality of people. And I hate to say it because it just sounds terrible, but this mall would not shut down if it hadn't been abandoned by people that have money. They're just not making the money. It's falling apart. It's not being kept up. Those were the stories that we've been reading. When was the last time you were there? Do you remember?
I bet you it was 30 years ago.
Wow, believe me, Bill, it's changed. It
It
has really
may have
changed.
been even, well, no, I know. The last time I was there, it had changed. That's why it was the last time I was there. But I would say it was probably 30 years ago. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a shame. It For me, it's just a nice history growing up there. That was where my teen years were and where I graduated from high school. So, all right, Bill, I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And we'll see you next week when Ray decides that really Trump isn't that bad.
That ain't ever going to happen, Bill. All right, everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.